I thought it was a fun game, a trust test with my boyfriend. But one wrong move and suddenly he didn't trust me anymore. It started as a joke, a silly idea my friends had thrown around, a trust test for couples. I laughed at first, imagining it would be cute, harmless, even fun. And when I brought it up to Karan, he laughed too. That laugh, the one that makes your stomach flip because you love it so much, made me feel like maybe this could actually be a little adventure for us. Are you serious? He asked, smirking across the table at me. Yeah, I said, grinning. We prove we trust each other. You agree? I agree. End of story. Karan's eyes twinkled. All right, let's do it, but don't cheat. We spent the evening planning it like a game. Small rules, small tasks, harmless things that would test honesty, trust, and maybe even patience. I told myself it would strengthen our bond, make our relationship bulletproof. I never thought it could go wrong. The first rule was simple. We each had to answer questions honestly while friends acted as observers. A friend might ask me a playful question about Karan, or he'd be asked about me. Nothing serious, nothing scandalous, just a little fun. But as soon as I started telling Karan about my day, I noticed a flicker in his eyes. Confusion, maybe irritation. I laughed it off. Maybe I was imagining it. Then my friend Ria, who was helping us with the test, accidentally made a comment that I didn't expect. She said, "Wow, he seems pretty close to that girl at work. You okay with that?" I froze. I didn't know which girl at work she meant. I looked at Karan, trying to read his expression. He smiled awkwardly, but there was something behind it. Just a tiny twitch, a pause too long, a flicker of something. I tried to brush it off. It was part of the game after all. But in that moment, the seed of doubt was planted. As the evening went on, I started noticing little things. Karan checking his phone more than usual, subtle laughs with other friends, glances that didn't feel entirely innocent. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the game was just stirring up silly jealousy, but the trust test, which was supposed to be fun, had already started its subtle work. What started as a joke, a playful way to prove love, was slowly twisting into something I wasn't prepared for. I didn't realize then that even the smallest misunderstandings, especially when combined with a game about trust, could grow into a storm. And I didn't know that night that our love, the same love I thought was unbreakable, was about to be tested in ways I could never imagine. Would you ever play a trust test with your partner, or do you think it's just asking for trouble? The next day, we met at Karan's apartment to officially set the rules. It felt serious, like we were signing an invisible contract that promised honesty, loyalty, and patience. I thought about how simple it sounded on paper, but somehow the excitement made my stomach twist. Ria and another friend, Samir, were helping. They acted as observers, just there to ask questions, record our answers, and make sure no one cheated. I smiled nervously. Are we really doing this? Karen laughed, brushing a strand of hair from my face. It's just a game, Ria. Chill, we wrote down small tasks. No phones during questions, no lying, no exaggerations. Simple stuff, like sharing honest opinions about each other's habits, admitting who we'd text first when upset, that kind of thing. But as soon as the first round started, I noticed how quickly tension could build. Samir asked Karan, Ria's been texting a lot of her friends lately. Did you feel jealous? Karan blinked. I could see the twitch in his lips, the quick glance toward my phone on the table. No, not really, he said too quickly. My heart sank just a little. Was it the game making him defensive, or was there truth hidden in his hesitation? Then Ria jumped in, innocently. Oh, and what about that girl from your office? You've mentioned her before. My stomach dropped. I forced a laugh, trying to keep it light. Ria, don't do that. Karan's eyes flickered toward me. That tiny moment, that pause, made my heart beat faster. I wanted to believe it was nothing. I wanted to trust him. But the rules, the observers, and the questions were slowly turning into pressure I hadn't expected. By the second round, little misunderstandings started cropping up. A text notification on his phone, a laugh shared with Ria that seemed a little too close, a careless comment about someone I didn't know. Each one felt like it was magnified 10 times, each one whispering doubts into my head. I tried to push them away. It's just the game. Don't overthink it. But the trust test was working too well, proving our love, or proving how fragile it really was. Karan noticed my unease. He reached for my hand. Ria, relax. It's just silly. I wanted to relax. I really did. But that tiny voice inside me, the one that doesn't lie when you start overthinking, was screaming, be careful. Something's about to go wrong. By the time we ended the session, I had a knot in my stomach. The fun game I had agreed to had already created the first cracks in my heart. And I had no idea that night how quickly jealousy, misunderstandings, and rumors would explode into something that could destroy everything I loved. Would you let friends or strangers be involved in a trust test? Or would that just make misunderstandings inevitable? It was a Friday evening, and Karan and I were supposed to meet Ria and Samir for the second part of our trust test. I felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. Excitement because I wanted to prove our love. Dread because I could already feel the tension building, like storm clouds hovering over us. As soon as we arrived at the cafe, Samir grinned. Ready for round two? I smiled faintly, trying to hide the unease knotting my stomach. Karan squeezed my hand, but his grip felt a little too tight, like he was nervous too. The first question seemed harmless. Ria asked, Karan, if someone flirts with Ria, how would you react? Karan chuckled nervously. I don't know. I'd probably tell them to back off. I laughed, but the moment I did, Samir nudged Ria. She whispered something, and I caught a glimpse of her text to Karan. My stomach lurched. What's that? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Nothing, Ria said quickly, smiling. But the way she avoided my gaze, the way Karan's eyes flickered toward his phone, it was enough. My heart started racing. Later, while I was getting water, I noticed Karan laughing a little too loudly at something Ria said. My mind went wild. Why is he laughing like that? Did she just flirt with him? Is this part of the game? Or by the time I sat back down, the air between us felt charged. Karan tried to start a conversation about work, but I could barely listen. My mind kept replaying what I had just seen, the texts, the laughter, the glances, and then it happened. Ria, probably without realizing it, made another comment. You two are so cute together. But he does have a way of noticing other girls, huh? I froze. My hands shook. Did she just imply that Karan was interested in someone else? My eyes darted toward him. He looked calm, but his calm didn't reassure me. My chest tightened, and suddenly the trust test felt like a trap. What do you mean? I asked, trying to sound casual, but my voice wobbled. Oh, nothing, Ria said, glancing away. But it was too late. My mind had already spun 1,000 worst-case scenarios. Karan noticed my change immediately. Ria, what's wrong? I don't know, I whispered. It's nothing. But it wasn't nothing. The first misunderstanding had struck, and the tiny cracks from our first session were widening fast. What was supposed to be a fun game of trust was now planting seeds of jealousy, insecurity, and doubt. And I had no idea that this was only the beginning. That the trust test, the game we both agreed to, was about to spiral completely out of control, threatening everything I loved. If a harmless comment or glance from someone else caused your partner to look jealous, would you confront it immediately or let it slide? The days after the cafe were strange. Karan and I tried to act normal, but the trust test had left a shadow over everything. Every small thing he did, a laugh, a glance at his phone, a quick smile at someone else, felt magnified. I caught myself analyzing every detail, every gesture. I hated it. I hated that I felt this way. I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe that the game hadn't broken us, but my heart didn't listen to reason. One evening, I was at home when I got a message from Ria. Hey, Karan seemed a little distracted today. Just saying. I froze. Distracted? What did that mean? I stared at my phone, my mind racing. My fingers trembled as I typed a reply, telling her it was fine, that I didn't need updates. But the seed of doubt had already grown into a vine twisting around my thoughts. When Karan called that night, I tried to sound normal. Hey, he said cheerfully, but I could hear the hesitation in his voice, a little pause before he spoke again. Did you get Ria's message? I blinked. Yeah, I saw it. My stomach sank. Why are you bringing it up? Just curious. You seemed upset. Upset. That word hit me like a punch. Of course I was upset. He hadn't even noticed how uneasy I felt, how every joke, every look from someone else now seemed like a threat. I tried to explain, but it came out wrong. My words were clipped, defensive. It's nothing. Stop overthinking. Ria, I'm not overthinking. I just want to understand. And there it was, the first real crack in our communication. Instead of trust, we now had suspicion. Instead of laughter, we had tension. Every day, the trust test worked its quiet magic, slowly twisting fun into fear, questions into accusations. I found myself watching him more, listening more carefully. Every phone notification made my heart race. Every "he's busy with work" excuse felt like a lie. I hated that I didn't trust him, hated that I let this silly game make me paranoid, and yet, I couldn't stop. I knew the trust test had gone too far. I knew it was a game that should have stayed harmless. But the misunderstandings, the comments, the whispers of jealousy from friends and strangers alike, they had created a storm I wasn't sure we could weather. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, replaying every laugh, every glance, every word from the past week. And for the first time, I wondered if the game had done more than test our love. Maybe it had broken it. Have you ever felt your jealousy grow? Even when there was no real reason, just a misunderstanding. How would you handle it? It all came crashing down one Saturday evening. Karan and I had agreed to meet at a friend's house for the next stage of the trust test. I was nervous, my stomach full of butterflies that weren't entirely pleasant. Every step I took toward his car, I questioned, am I overthinking? Or is something really wrong? When I got there, the house was buzzing with people. Friends chatting, music playing softly in the background. Everything seemed normal. But the moment I saw Karan laughing with Ria near the balcony, my chest tightened. That laugh, that tilt of his head, my mind twisted it into something dangerous, something I couldn't ignore. As soon as we started the next round of questions, small remarks snowballed into chaos. Samir innocently asked, would you feel jealous if Ria hung out with someone you didn't know? Before Karan could answer, my voice slipped out, sharper than I intended. I think he already is jealous, and I said, forcing a laugh I didn't feel. He froze. His smile faltered. Ria, what are you talking about? I pointed toward Ria, who looked startled, realizing her innocent comments had sparked this tension. She keeps making suggestions about you noticing other girls. You're laughing at her jokes, smiling too much. Don't act like you don't see it. The room went quiet. Eyes turned toward us. Karen's expression shifted from confusion to hurt. Ria, you think I'm doing something behind your back? Yes, I snapped, my voice trembling. How else am I supposed to feel when everything seems off? Ria tried to intervene, stammering, it was just, I didn't mean, but I wasn't listening. The trust test had done exactly what I feared. It had turned fun into suspicion, games into accusations, and my heart into a battlefield. Karan's voice broke through my spiral. Ria, I've done nothing. I laughed at a joke. I smiled because people were talking to me. I haven't been unfaithful. I'm not your enemy. The words should have calmed me, but anger, hurt, and embarrassment had taken over. I ran to the balcony, gasping for air, feeling the weight of every glance from friends and strangers alike. He followed me, gently placing a hand on my shoulder. Ria, listen, I didn't do anything wrong. This test, it's gone too far. I shook my head. You don't get it. It's not just the test. It's everything. The doubts, the jealousy, the whispers. You're supposed to trust me, and now I feel like I can't trust you either. And just like that, the trust test exploded. Laughter, love, and fun vanished into accusations, tears, and silence. The game that was supposed to bring us closer had backfired completely. That night, as I lay in bed replaying every word, every glance, I realized how fragile love could be when jealousy, misunderstandings, and a harmless experiment mixed together. The test wasn't over, not yet. But one thing was painfully clear. If we didn't fix this now, our relationship might never recover. Have you ever seen a harmless game or joke completely ruin a relationship? How would you handle a situation like Ria's? The day after the backfire, everything felt heavy. Karan hadn't called. I hadn't reached out. The silence between us was deafening. Every message I thought about sending sat unsent. Every phone vibration made my heart race with fear and hope. I replayed the argument in my head 1,000 times. My voice, trembling and accusing. His eyes, hurt and confused. And Ria, standing there, innocent but somehow the catalyst of everything. I couldn't stop thinking, how did a simple trust test spiral into this? At work, every laugh, every glance at my phone, every friend's comment felt magnified. I found myself watching Karan's social media. Not stalking, I told myself, just checking. But even that tiny act made my chest tighten. Jealousy and doubt had crept in so quietly that I didn't notice how much control they had taken over me. When I finally called him that evening, my voice shook. Karan, can we talk? He sighed on the other end, low and tired. Ria, I think we need space. I don't want to fight anymore. Space. The word hit me like a hammer. I felt panic rise, the fear of losing him, the realization of how much the trust test had already damaged us. I spent hours pacing my apartment, thinking about everything. How a harmless game turned into a battlefield, how small misunderstandings magnified into accusations, and how quickly love could be overshadowed by doubt. Friends tried to console me. It's just a misunderstanding. You'll fix it. But their words felt hollow. How do you fix something when the trust you thought was unbreakable now feels fragile? That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, tears slipping quietly down my cheeks. I thought about every smile Karan had given me, every laugh we shared, every moment that felt like love. And I realized how easily it could all be tainted when fear and jealousy entered the picture. I had questions I didn't know how to ask, emotions I didn't know how to sort. And most of all, I realized something terrifying. Maybe the game wasn't just testing our love. Maybe it was exposing the cracks that were always there, the insecurities we'd ignored, the doubts we never spoke aloud. By the time morning came, I felt exhausted, heart heavy, mind racing. The fallout of the trust test had changed everything. It wasn't just about a game anymore. It was about whether we could survive the consequences of our own mistakes. And deep down, I knew the hardest part wasn't just the misunderstandings. It was what came next. Deciding if the love we had left was strong enough to overcome jealousy, mistrust, and the storm we had created ourselves. Have you ever had a misunderstanding grow so big that it felt impossible to fix? How would you handle it if the person you loved needed space? After a few tense days of silence, I realized I couldn't just sit and let the tension fester. I needed answers, clarity. I needed to know what had really happened, beyond my spiraling thoughts and fears. I reached out to Ria first. Her response was almost immediate, but I could tell she was nervous. Ria, I didn't mean anything to happen. It was just supposed to be fun. Ria, I know that, I said softly, trying to keep my frustration in check. But I need to know the truth. Did he do anything? She hesitated, then sighed. No, Ria, he didn't, I swear. It was all just misunderstandings. A joke here, a comment there, and I think you both read too much into it. I felt a mix of relief and anger. Relief that Karan hadn't betrayed me. Anger that the game, the innocent comments, had been allowed to grow into something so toxic between us. Next, I needed to hear it from Karan. I called him, my hands trembling, my heart racing with hope and fear. Karan, can we meet? I need to understand, I said. He was silent for a moment. Yeah? Okay, meet me at the park? Sitting on the familiar bench where we used to spend lazy Sunday afternoons, I looked at him. He looked exhausted, but there was still warmth in his eyes. Ria, he began quietly, I never did anything. The laughs, the comments, even the looks. Nothing meant what you thought. I swear tears welled up in my eyes. Relief washed over me, but it was tangled with guilt. I let the trust test twist my mind. I saw things that weren't there. I doubted you. My voice cracked. He reached for my hand, holding it firmly. It's okay. I get it. That test. It got out of hand. I should have noticed your tension sooner. I should have reassured you more. I nodded, letting the tension slowly leave my chest. So it was all just misunderstandings? Yes, he said softly. Nothing else. You're the one I love, Ria. Nothing changed that we sat in silence, letting the truth settle between us. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't sudden, but it was enough. Enough to remind us that love isn't tested by games, jokes, or comments from friends. Love is tested by patience, understanding, and trust, the kind that doesn't need experiments to prove it. By the time we stood to leave, the storm had passed. We weren't perfect, but we were real, honest. And finally, after days of heartache, I felt a tiny flicker of hope. Have you ever realized that a misunderstanding made you doubt someone you loved? How did you find the truth and peace afterward? The next day, I asked Karan to come over. I needed more than words from the park bench. I needed honesty, raw truth, and a chance to confront every fear that had built up in the past week. He arrived, carrying that calm I always loved, but I could see the weariness in his eyes. Ria, he began, but I cut in gently. We need to talk. Everything. No filters. We sat across from each other, and for the first time in days, I let myself be completely honest. I doubted you, Karan. I let a game, a silly test, make me suspicious. I watched your every move, your every glance, and I twisted it into something it wasn't. His eyes softened, but he didn't interrupt. I needed him to hear everything. Ria's comments, Samir's jokes, even the way you laughed at them. I let it control me. I let my fear make me cruel, accusatory. I was jealous and I was wrong. Karan reached for my hand. Ria, I should have seen the effect the test had on you. I should have reassured you instead of thinking it was just a game. I never wanted to hurt you, but I need you to know. I never did anything to betray your trust. Tears pricked my eyes. I know that now. But I can't stop feeling guilty for doubting you, for letting the game twist our love into suspicion and fear. I feel like I almost ruined everything we had. He squeezed my hand gently. We both got caught in it. I underestimated how fragile our trust could be when a simple game became so serious. But this confrontation, talking it out, this is what will heal us. It's scary to face our own mistakes, but it's necessary. I took a deep breath. I'm scared, Karen. Scared that next time I might doubt again. Scared that trust can be broken so easily. He smiled softly, reassuringly. Ria, trust isn't fragile if we work on it together. We survived this test, even if it went horribly wrong. That means we can survive more as long as we communicate, as long as we fight for us, not against each other. For the first time in days, I felt the weight lift. The confrontation wasn't easy, and it wasn't over in an instant, but it was real, honest, healing. We talked for hours. Every fear, every insecurity, every jealousy laid bare and examined. No judgment, just understanding. By the end, I realized the trust test had inadvertently forced us to confront the cracks in our relationship, the parts we hadn't discussed, the doubts we hadn't admitted even to ourselves. And in that confrontation, something remarkable happened. Love, trust, and understanding replaced suspicion, jealousy, and fear. The storm had passed, leaving us stronger and more aware of each other than before. Have you ever had to confront your partner after a misunderstanding? How did honesty and open communication change things? After the confrontation, silence settled between us for a moment, the kind of quiet that isn't awkward but heavy with thought. I looked at Karan, really looked at him, and realized how much we had both been through in just a few days. I'm sorry, I whispered, my voice trembling. I shouldn't have doubted you. I let the game, my jealousy and my fears make me act unfairly. I accused you of things you never did. I hurt you, and I hate that I did that. Karen's eyes softened, and he shook his head. Ria, don't forget. I should have noticed sooner how stressed you were. I let the game spiral too. I didn't communicate enough, and that made it worse. I'm sorry too. The apologies felt like bridges, small connections across the distance the trust test had created. I realized then that love wasn't just about the good moments. It was about admitting mistakes, taking responsibility, and trying to repair what had been damaged. We spent hours reflecting on everything, the trust test, the comments from friends, the misunderstandings that escalated. I admitted my insecurities, my tendency to overthink, my fear of losing him. Karan admitted how easy it had been to underestimate the power of doubt, how his silence sometimes made things worse. I think the test wasn't about proving trust, I said softly. I think it revealed how easily jealousy and miscommunication can creep in. It forced us to face parts of ourselves we didn't even realize were there. Karan nodded. Exactly. And now that we've seen it, we can be more careful, more honest, more open. We can protect what we have instead of letting a silly game damage it. I felt tears prick my eyes again, but this time, they were tears of relief. Relief that we had survived this storm. Relief that we had learned a lesson without losing each other. We promised each other something that night. No more tests, no more unnecessary games. Just honesty, patience, and trust, even when it's hard. Even when jealousy whispers lies. Even when doubts try to take over. As I held his hand, I realized love was never perfect. It was messy, complicated, and sometimes painful. But it was worth fighting for. Worth reflecting on. Worth apologizing for. Worth learning from. The trust test had gone horribly wrong, but somehow it had given us a chance to see each other clearly, to confront our flaws and to choose each other again, consciously and intentionally. I knew there would be challenges ahead, moments when doubt might creep back in. But I also knew that as long as we faced them together, with honesty and love, nothing could truly break us. Have you ever faced a challenge that made you rethink how you communicate in a relationship? How did it change the way you approached trust and love? The days that followed were quieter, gentler, no games, no tests, no whispers of doubt, just Karan and me, rebuilding our love one conversation at a time. I realized how fragile trust could feel when fear and misunderstanding take root, but I also discovered how resilient it could be when nurtured with honesty and care. We had been forced to face our insecurities head on, to confront emotions we had tucked away, and to speak truths we had been too afraid to voice. We started small, texts that were longer than necessary just to check in, calls to say, I love you or I'm thinking of you when either of us felt uneasy. Laughter shared freely, without the shadow of a test looming over it. I remember one evening sitting on the balcony with him, the city lights sparkling below. I leaned on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence, and whispered, I don't want to ever let doubt get in the way like that again. He kissed my forehead softly. We'll never be perfect, Ria. But we can choose each other every day, no matter what. That simple statement, choosing each other every day, became our mantra. We acknowledged that jealousy, fear, and misunderstandings might visit us again, but we promised to communicate, to trust, and to act with love rather than suspicion. I also realized something important. Love isn't about testing each other. It's not about proving trust with games or pranks. It's about being willing to be vulnerable, to forgive mistakes, and to work together through challenges. Looking back, the trust test that had spiraled into chaos taught me more than I could have imagined. It revealed my insecurities, my tendency to overthink, and my vulnerability. It also revealed Karan's patience, his loyalty, and his willingness to fight for us. As weeks turned into months, the memory of the test faded from anger into reflection. It became a story we could laugh about, a reminder of how far we had come. And every time I looked at him, I felt grateful, not just for the love we shared, but for the lessons we had learned about communication, honesty, and the strength it takes to forgive and rebuild. We weren't perfect. We never would be. But we were stronger than before, bound not by tests, but by trust, understanding, and a love that had been challenged and survived. And for the first time in a long while, I felt peace. Have you ever faced a challenge that tested your relationship but ultimately made it stronger? How did you and your partner grow from it?